What if the oldest wisdom isn't a plan for living, but a gentle invitation to stop pretending you already know the ending? Socrates would have loved that question. He didn't claim to have all the answers. He claimed the courage to admit how little he knew. And in that small admission, he began a kind of inner weather system, a way to calm the mind by asking the right questions one breath at a time. Socrates spoke through questions more than statements. And his questions weren't traps, but compasses. He stood in the marketplace not to lecture, but to listen for the point where certainty stiffens into noise. He would ask, what is virtue? What is justice? What do we mean by a good life? And as soon as you gave him an answer, he would set that answer beside a dozen new questions, not to humiliate you, but to loosen the grip of certainty enough to see clearly again. This is the core trick of his philosophy. Dialogue that slows the mind so sleep can begin. Context matters here. In a world addicted to certainty, Socrates gives us a countermedicine. Not a pill, but a habit. A habit of testing our own beliefs with careful curiosity. Not to win debates, but to arrive at a little more space inside the skull where peace can settle. It isn't about knowing more. It's about learning to tolerate not knowing. And paradoxically, that tolerance can feel like a soft harbor after a long voyage. To fall asleep with Socrates, you don't need to memorize his questions. You need to borrow the rhythm of his method. Begin with a gentle inquiry. What am I certain of right now? And what would it take for me to doubt it just a fraction? Hear how that doubt doesn't sting, but loosens the shoulders. The mind can become a quiet harbor when the hull of certainty is loosened from the anchor of ego. The trick is to pace the questions as if you were counting breaths, in out and out. With each exhale, you shed a stubborn assumption. Consider how Socrates treated knowledge as something to be tested, not something to be possessed. He didn't mock people for ignorance. He invited them to illuminate their own truths. When you see a favorite belief begin to flicker, you haven't failed. You've learned where your map isn't perfect. The room grows softer. The day's jangling edges recede, and the mind finds a shoreline where the waves of worry kiss sand and retreat. This is the space sleep loves, a mind still enough to glide, not a mind exhausted by battle. Let me tell you a simple version of the Elenchus, Socrates' famous method, in a way that lands before sleep arrives. Picture a sparring partner made of questions. Your initial answer is a shield. The partner taps the shield gently, asking, what do you mean by friendship? Is it utility, affection, shared values? You answer, then the partner asks, and is that definition true for all friends? The shield rattles, you pause, and a moment of silence opens. In that pause, the mind clarifies itself without the noise. You're not losing a debate. You're discovering a kinder, more accurate map of your own heart. SFX, soft tapping sound. To this isn't about becoming more clever. It's about becoming less gullible with yourself. Socrates' famous claim that he knew nothing is not a confession of ignorance, but a stance. If we admit our own uncertainty, we keep the door open to truth. Sleep, in its quiet way, rewards such humility. The brain stops rehearsing every defense and starts rehearsing wonder. Wonder is sleep's ally. It keeps you company while your body drifts. And it reminds you that you don't need to solve the universe tonight, only to rest long enough to wake with a new, gentler question in the morning. Now, we don't have to live in ancient Athens to practice this. Every night, we face the same two questions Socrates faced. What do I think I know? And what would it take to doubt it? If we let the questions breathe, the day's noise reduces to a distant hum. The room becomes a cocoon of neutral light. And here is the turning point. The cave you often mistake for reality isn't walls and shadows, but the habit of certainty you carry into bed. When you loosen that habit, sleep slips in like a patient friend, not a furious drill sergeant. There is a practical shape to this sleep philosophy. Pick one guiding question for tonight. It could be, what assumption about myself am I ready to re-examine? Or what fear would lose its grip if I tested it with a single, kind question. Then lie on your back, eyes soft, breath steady, and speak the question to the quiet around you. Let the answer take the form of a small, unobtrusive insight, an observation about your day, a realization about your own stubbornness, a new angle on a long-standing worry. Do not chase certainty. Invite gentleness. Let the mind walk to a calm radius, like a ship slipping into a fog where the depth is unknown, but the surface is calm enough to sail. SFX, Distant Night Owl. 3. The twist Socrates would approve is this. Not all questions demand an answer right away. Some truths reveal themselves only as you sleep, the kind that emerge when the body rests, and the mind pauses its relentless chase for control. The philosopher's job is to prepare the ground for such revelations, not to harvest every answer in one sitting. So tonight, you do not conquer sleep with force. You collaborate with it, offering a sincere question and then allowing the silence to do what questions cannot, to soften the nervous system, to quiet the inner critic, to reframe a worry as a curiosity. In that reframing, sleep becomes a teacher rather than a battle. If your mind wanders, don't scold it. Return to the pace of the question, like a seasoned sailor returning to the helm after a stray current. The Socratic method in sleep is less fencing and more lulling. It works best when the voice that speaks the questions is calm, even almost bored with certainty. The goal is not to win the argument in your head, but to loosen the grip on the argument enough to let your neurons settle into restful rhythms. In a few minutes, the mind may drop its guard and the body will fall, sinking into a quiet shoreline where thoughts drift like boats, unmoved by fear. So how should you wake up after this night of questions? You wake not with a lecture, but with a lonely truth. You don't need to know all the answers to live a meaningful life. Socrates shows us a life of continuous questioning, a life that keeps curiosity alive as a companion rather than a weapon. In that stance, you become someone who sleeps well and wakes curious, ready to test a new question in the daylight. The real consolation is not certainty, but the practice of returning to questions with gentleness again and again, until the mind learns to rest inside its own honest, imperfect map. Where does that leave you as you drift towards sleep? It leaves you with a single, simple habit. Ask one generous question, breathe, and let the room do the rest. The philosopher's path isn't a ladder to climb in a single night. It's a tunnel that you walk slowly, listening for the sound of your own breath, listening for the moment when the questions stop being a contest and start being a doorway. And if you fall asleep in the middle of a question, that's not failure. That is wisdom learning to rest in progress. The Complete Philosophy of Socrates, explained simply, is this. We are most alive when we doubt with kindness, when we question with care, and when sleep is allowed to come as a gentle teacher rather than a relentless opponent. Soft exhale. 2. If you carry one image into a night that forgives your imperfect certainty, the rest will follow, as all good sleep does. Not as a victory march, but as a quiet, legitimate afterglow of minds that chose to wonder rather than to win. And in that afterglow, you might discover that the oldest philosophy was never a doctrine to memorize, but a practice to live one breath at a time. Some nights, the simplest question becomes the heaviest weight in your chest, the kind you carry with a sigh until dawn. Socrates would smile at that heaviness and say, "Greet it, don't try to lift it. Let the night do the lifting." In this gentle session, the mind is not taxed by proof, but invited to rest into plausible meanings. The questions stop rushing. They drift like stars refracting in a quiet lake. Your breath becomes the shoreline, and every inhale is a soft anchor. Sleep arrives not by conquering fear, but by easing its grip into curiosity. Let that gentle mode become a nightly ritual, a soft agreement with the mind that rest is not surrender, but a form of subtle study. Wake with one question, then